This is Aging by the Bay, here to provide families in the San Francisco Bay Area pertinent information about healthy aging practices and services. Your host is Ajay Sani of ComForCare Home Care.
Good morning and welcome everyone to Aging by the Bay, where we provide families in the San Francisco Bay Area relevant information about healthy aging practices and services. I'm your host Ajay Sani from ComForCare Home Care. With ComForCare, you can give your loved one the best life possible, thanks to complete in-home care for every stage of life. Find out more at ComForCare.com or call us at 1-800-886-4044. At Aging by the Bay, we talk about joys and some of the challenges of growing older in the Bay Area. We talk to experts about what they see happening as people age, as well as the services that are available that you or your loved ones may not be aware of. First of all, I want to thank our sponsor, A Love for Seniors, who specializes in helping seniors find residential care homes, assisted living facilities, and memory care assistance. You can contact them directly at 1-800-850-9102. Their website is aloveforseniors.com, and again, their number is 1-800-850-9102. Today, I'm very excited to introduce two guests who have been involved with the elderly care for a long time. So, my first guest, Warren Spieker, who is the managing partner of Continuing Life LLC. Continuing Life provides business services and support for many continuing care retirement communities in California, including Stoneridge, Creek, Pleasanton, and East Bay. He received a master's degree in business administration from the Kellogg Graduate School of Management at Northwestern University, where he coached the women's rugby team to the national championship. He has a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of California, Berkeley, where he played rugby. So, welcome, Warren.
Thank you, Ajay. Nice to be here.
And my second guest today is actually over the phone, Zeke Griffin. He's the Executive Director of Stoneridge Creek in Pleasanton, a continuing care retirement community that is home to over 800 residents. He holds licensing as both a nursing home administrator and for residential care facilities for the elderly. He is a proud graduate of San Jose State University's bachelor's in health science and Brandman University, where he did his MBA. Zeke has shown a lifelong dedication to the elderly population that he and his colleagues are honored to provide quality care and service. So welcome, Zeke.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you.
So let's start. Home sweet home. It's always dear to us when it comes to home. And in old age, it becomes all the more important. So can you please explain how you see the different types of retirement communities that are available out here for our seniors?
Yes, so typically senior housing, there's a number of segments, right? Just like you wouldn't say real estate, which is very all-encompassing. So I tend to think of it in segments. You'd start with, on the more independent side, it's called independent living. And in many ways that resembles living in your own home. Your services are probably more limited. And it feels like your home in that you may live in a single family, typically single story. It could be apartments, but they would generally have no stairs, use elevators. It's geared towards people as they're getting older. And because they are healthy and independent, you're not going to have as many services. Maybe there's housekeeping, obviously maintenance, things like that. It can cover the gamut, but it's just age restricted for people who are more or less able to take care of themselves. They're healthy and they're going on about their lives. Some may even still be working. As you move down the spectrum or across the spectrum, as the service needs, or as people get older, the service needs typically increase. So the next level of care would be assisted living. And that's somebody who is no longer able to fully take care of themselves. They need help with what are called ADLs, or activities of daily living. Assist, dressing, bathing, things like that. And unlike maybe, independent living, which would be more like single-family homes or apartments, this is typically going to be an apartment building. Smaller residences, probably.
Okay.
More on the services side of things, right? Because you're getting all this help with ADLs, probably food services included, and other things.
Right.
Smaller structures, smaller rooms. A little bit higher prices because you're getting more services, of course.
Yeah.
And assisted living oftentimes includes or has specialized care with memory support for those with dementia or Alzheimer's, things like that. That kind of specialized care. And then the most acute level of care is skilled nursing. And that's for people who can't take care of themselves at all. They need 24-hour care. It's typically actually a bed, oftentimes in a private or semi-private room. This is what in the old days used to be known as convalescent care. And it's simply for people who need 24/7 care. And again, they're getting all the services included. It's, of course, the highest price point because it is 24/7 care. And so that's the most acute. There are also communities that are combining, one or two of these levels of services, which is helpful, particularly when spouses are separated. So the one can have maybe a more independent standard of living while the other needs more care. And then there are communities like continuing care retirement communities, or what are now called life plan communities, where they have all levels of care. And a resident can theoretically phase along the whole spectrum, or couples can, and age together as their needs change over time. One of the important things I think, though, Ajay, is you mentioned home sweet home. And there is a real difference between home and house. And I think that's one of the things that's important about senior housing is this sense of community and home, as opposed to just a house or a place to live. And, we may talk about that more. But the home sweet home, I think really you hit the nail on the head more than you think.
Yeah, because it's very, very important, depending on the personality and the health situation, that in a house, if you're alone and you want to socialize and you have no one to socialize, then it may not be the right solution for you. And in a community, you can just enjoy all the perks and have so much to socialize and do so many activities.
Yeah. The social dynamic is big. Zeke, did I leave anything out, or do you have anything to add?
I think the only other thing to add would be the respite option, and in the skilled nursing and assisted living venues, where somebody who's potentially overwhelmed by providing care for a loved one can have the option to utilize those settings for care in a short period of time.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, so moving on. Man is a social animal, right? And we feel more positivity and happiness when we are among people who are similar to us. And now, don't you think the role of retirement communities have become even more critical during this COVID-19 environment? And so do you see any major changes post-COVID-19 or whatever the new normal will be?
Why don't I start by addressing the kind of this social dynamic currently, and then in terms of forecasting the future, I'll take a stab at that. We'll see. It's maybe early in the process. But in terms of the social dynamic in COVID-19, yes, I do think retirement communities are more important than ever. And I don't think people really appreciate it as much until this. This has actually highlighted it. And you ask any of us, older than 65, younger than 65, what this shelter at home is like. And, frankly, it's for the birds.
Yeah.
But prior to this, social isolation was already a huge issue for those over age 65. And surely that's only been magnified by this shelter-in-place order and the difficulty of getting services, services delivered to you.
Yeah.
Not to mention social interaction.
Yeah.
And I think that's where retirement communities really do serve a great purpose. There's the fundamental side of things, right? First of all, maybe you're not going to a dining room anymore.
Yeah.
And sitting down with your friends or spouses or family. But you're getting the services delivered to you. Your meals are being delivered. Groceries are being delivered. And, maybe it's a little less social interaction, but at least you're getting to see a couple of people every day that are delivering your meals, delivering your groceries. When you go out to go on a walk around the campus or something like that, you get that interaction. And our experience in the past, of course, with these communities was that it was both residents and staff that drove this social interaction. That's what people liked in the past. Mm-hmm. And again, that's only become more enhanced because while our restaurants, for example, in the past, they weren't exactly like let's say a Cheesecake Factory. Mm-hmm. Frankly, it was local kids. Oftentimes it's their first job. And these residents almost took them on as if they were their own grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And so residents enjoyed the interaction not only with their peers, but with all the staff in the dining room.
Yeah.
Well, that's obviously shifted. And now these local teens or others that were serving the meals in the dining room are now delivering them to the people's residences. But you've got to imagine, they're looking forward to that delivery.
Yeah.
And they're excited to catch up with, Susie or Bobby or whoever the case may be and hear what's going on with their lives. And frankly, our staff really enjoy that dynamic as well. And so maybe that's, a good segue into what's it look like going forward. Mm-hmm. And I'd say take this with all a grain of salt. You're asking to look into a crystal ball.
Right. It was more like what you see as of today or what you imagine moving forward. Zeke, would you like to add something here?
Well, let me just, if I can, try and take a stab at this before I turn it over to Zeke.
Okay.
And that is, just like what's going on in the country is going on within these communities, which is there's people who say, I want out, let's go back to normal. Mm-hmm. And there's people saying, I'm scared and I'm nervous and I want to hunker down.
Right.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if you continue in these retirement communities to see this bifurcated situation. Mm-hmm. But I think that's one of the great things that it allows is that you'll have people who say, I'm staying in my residence, deliver my meals, deliver my groceries, I'm going to hunker down. Mm-hmm. But I think as things start to loosen up, as we get adjusted to this new normal, you'll also see people taking on more, I hate to say it, risk, because it's really just going back to, some things we were doing in the past, whether it's, playing bocce ball or tennis or going to the art class. But that will start to happen. Mm-hmm. And those who wish to do that will be able to do so, probably under some new sanitation process and operations, while those who wish to stay home or hunker down can do so. And I think that will be, some of the pathway forward as it relates to dining, arts, sports, frankly, everything going forward. And we'll figure it out as we go along.
For sure. So it's what I'm hearing from you is like it's all about our options. And if we can give them the options, whichever way they are comfortable and the guidelines allow, that's what we are doing. That's
what I'd see. Now, Zeke, you're closer to this. What do you see when you look in the crystal ball?
Well, I guess before I go to the crystal ball, I guess what I see now is in a community like ours, it's so different than the community that you and I live in right now, where we have the diversity of ages and different responsibilities. In our community, we have an age group that are all from similar eras, and they have been able to build a neighborly relationship before all this started. So now as we're going through something so difficult, you see this resilience of support for each other, along with support for staff who are commuting to work and having the stresses of navigating through the pandemic for themselves. The peace of mind that our residents know our staff are caring for them, and also the peace of mind that their children who have responsibilities to manage their kids at home at this point, knowing that their parents are taken care of by our staff is very meaningful. To add to some of the points that you already shared, we look at the monitoring and the wellness and the mental health services that you would get here versus being at home, along with technical support to activate systems like Zoom or FaceTime that some of our residents might not be as familiar with. Having that support from our staff, along with life enrichment activities and support with these errands, is a very meaningful part of their life that I think many of us took for granted. But now that we have to really utilize some of these mobile and innovative technologies, it's something that our residents need the support that we're able to provide here that they might not get if they were at home by themselves in kind of your standard household. Looking forward, as you mentioned, we have to make sure we're complying and operating along the guidelines provided by our health authorities. And, we're accustomed to providing programs that are somewhat high volume, high participants. But when we're accounting for social distancing or physical distancing, that will change. And I think that we're looking at ways that we can continue to mobilize in-home activities and services so that people can participate and they can, either hear a concert or a lecture from the pleasures of their home and still enjoy that, but not, have exposure that we're concerned with when we compromise social or physical distancing. So as we go along, I think we've all seen in the news that this experience is not short-term. This is something that we're going to have to continue to look at and work with our health authorities for probably the next year or so and figure out ways that we can be innovative to continue to provide them the meaningful service and experience that they've been accustomed to, even though things are changing, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so I guess we'll be relying a lot on virtual and online stuff now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. The next question I have, you started off by explaining different types of communities. So what are the key features the senior communities should have, according to you?
Well, the first I'd say is, generally the best way you're going to get a feel for something is to just go see it.
Okay.
You're going to get a sense of, is it the location, right? Is it the things you want, shopping, your doctors, maybe where you are. Does it, I would say to the degree you can have multiple levels of care, I think that's very helpful because, again, people don't typically just need, one step. People age over time.
Yeah.
That's why they're doing this. And so if you can have that, I think that's good. But it starts by going and seeing the community and getting a sense of things. I think that you want to make sure that there's, it's stable. It's been around for a while, right? And then the last is you need to factor in cost, right? And what your plan is and how you're going to manage those costs. Because I think most people know that as you get older and need more services, those result in increased costs. And so, we can talk about that now or later, but I think you need to, plan for that and figure out costs. So those would be some of the things that I'd think of. Zeke, what am I missing, or what do you think?
I think, looking at a community that you can see yourself enjoying for the long term. Again, this is something you worked hard for, and you deserve to have the experience that you've always wanted, and something that, not only that, it's something that's also appealing to the family members who want to come visit you. Being a nursing home administrator, I've seen where a loved one is placed in your community, in your facility, and you don't see the family members as frequently as you did maybe from the start. So having a place that you invite that relationship to continue to foster, and especially having the access to family members is always a point that I look for when someone's being placed in your community or deciding to live in your community.
Excellent. I think these are some very good suggestions overall that I'm pretty sure the listeners will enjoy, especially if they are in this phase where they are either planning or, looking for a retirement place. So, Zeke, what are some of the main features you want to highlight at Stoneridge Creekview that you are really proud of? And you say, these are, some of the things that people should know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My experience with Stoneridge Creek and Creekview actually extends before I was fortunate to start working here. I worked in the community very closely before the construction started, and I think I was in awe, as many of our neighbors were, seeing this beautiful community come to fruition. Despite the standard or expectation I had about working here, I've been overwhelmed by how much better it was than even my high expectations were at that time. We have a beautiful community, both at Stoneridge Creek and Creekview, and I think that starts with our residents and our staff. We've been fortunate actually to be rated as the best workplace for aging services, as a great place to work, and that's just indicative of our incredible, talented employees who come to work here and deliver quality services, and for that matter, the partnership we have with our residents who work in a very collegial manner to effectively look at the quality of our services and offer feedback on how we can continue to improve each and every day. As Warren shared, there's certain things you look for in a community, and when I look at Stoneridge, our residents will always remark along with their family and guests, that this feels like a resort. This feels like a place that I vacation to, not just live at this point in my life. And we have a beautiful campus, both indoor and outdoor plant, along with activities and amenities. And again, the number one thing with our residents is that they enjoy being with each other. They're very active residents that are pushing to have clubs and committees and events, and so it's always some place that's vibrant with energy. I think that also extends to the health center at Creekview, where many of our residents at some point in their life might need to go, whether it's short-term after a post-acute hospital stay, or long-term if that's the need in their life for higher level of care. At our health center, I've worked in nursing homes and seen much older nursing homes that are doing their best to provide quality care, but I have to say Creekview is top-notch in every way, from the physical plant to the services. We're a 5-star Medicare-rated health center, skilled nursing. We have telemedicine options so that we can avoid unnecessary acute hospital visits, and for that matter, possible readmissions. And so our staff work really hard to achieve those standards and to continue to provide care, not just for Stoneridge Creek residents, but even for the community, as we've partnered with our local hospitals and have relationships with them to support the quality of care that we're offering to our residents. So we're really proud of what we're doing here, and really excited that we're able to provide such a quality experience for our residents and our community.
Very good. And I think you have a role to play. You mentioned about your employees, so well done, I must say that. So, yeah, Warren, you want to add?
Yeah, could I add to that? And Zeke's really involved in the operations. I'd take a different perspective, and that is just from a programmatic or program standpoint. I think a couple of the differentiators are, first of all, that it has all levels of care, right, particularly including the skilled nursing, so that somebody can age in place, and the result of which is you see people that live at a community like Stoneridge Creek for 8, 10, 12 plus 20. We have community residents who have lived at these communities 20 years longer. You see a much longer living situation resulting in this sense of community I referenced earlier. And that's because people don't need to separate, whether it's a couple having to separate by a couple of miles based on their care needs, or an individual needing to pick up and move as their care needs increase. So having the all levels of care, including the skilled nursing, I think is one big one. The second is the way the program works, and that is that you're effectively getting long-term care insurance included. It's not technically long-term care insurance, but because all these different services are included as you need, and you don't have this big hockey stick in your costs as you need assisted living or memory support or skilled nursing, that is, it's predictable. And people like the predictability, particularly because most folks are on a fixed income at an age later in life. And the last is that this, while it may look more expensive on the surface, is actually a really great value because it's paid for from the sale of people's home. And most people in California, many people in California own a home. So our feeling is if you own a home in California and most people have paid off that mortgage, you're in a position to afford this great lifestyle for the rest of your life and have the peace of mind of knowing that you're not going to need to move again. And that's a real gift to spouses, to children, to families. And so some of those, the way the program works is unique.
Very good, because actually this was my last question about the cost and affordability. So you already touched. That's very good. And we are almost at the end of the program. So I will just say now that any final thoughts, tips, or suggestions for our listeners?
I would just simply suggest have a plan. There's a lot of ways to age. You can do it by staying at home and having a plan for home care. You can do it by moving to a retirement community. You can move in with your kids. There's a lot of ways, but have a concrete plan and know how you're going to execute. Don't just kick the can down the road and say, well, I'll figure it out. Most people haven't gotten to this stage in their life by not having a plan. They've been planners, so continue to have a plan for how you're going to live the rest of your life. Very good. Zeke, any final thought?
Nothing else to add to that. Just appreciate the opportunity to share some of our insights with you.
Great. So Thank you for joining us on Aging by the Bay today. This show was brought to you by ComForCare and a love for seniors. This weekly show provides information that helps our seniors age better. Please visit our sponsor's website, aloveforseniors.com. You can also contact them directly at 1-800-850-9102. We hope that you enjoyed the show, and please subscribe to our podcast that is available at iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. You can find this show and also previous shows at our website, agingbythebay.com. We love your feedback, and so please leave your comments. If you have any question for our featured guests or want to become a featured guest, please contact us by sending an email at info@agingbythebay.com. Again, a big thank you to our sponsors, A Love for Seniors, and to ComForCare Home Care. This has been an Aging by the Bay show addressing issues on aging and services available for our elderly population. We will be back next Saturday at 10 a.m. Until then, take care and have a nice week.
This has been Aging by the Bay with Ajay Sani, addressing issues on aging and services for the elderly community. Join us again next week for Aging by the Bay.